Hi, my name is Lou Recine, and I worked with my wife Anne to create this presentation. Anne is a doctor of nursing practice and a professor in the College of Nursing UWEC. She also has a private practice and sees people for life coaching, helping clients use their strengths and spirituality to improve their mind, body, and spirit health. She also does research in the area of positive psychology, including forgiveness. I do life coaching, including working with individuals and groups on forgiveness. I am a co-researcher of Anne's and a co-author with her on several journal articles, including the 2 articles in your reading assignment. We are also both members of a lay Franciscan order in the Catholic Church, so the OFS that you see after my name on this opening slide stands for Secular Franciscan Order. A quick note about something. For something later on in this presentation, you will need a small seed, preferably a bean seed, so please have one handy. And we'd like to thank Dr. Deborah Hoffman for inviting us to share this presentation with her students, with all of you. We are passionate about the importance of this topic, how life-giving and wonderful it can be, particularly for the forgiver. Okay, let's get started. From what you've learned so far, and from your own experiences, what do you think are some reasons the topic of forgiveness is relevant to nursing? Please go ahead and pause the audio for a moment and reflect on this. And you might even, if you have a sheet of paper handy, you might even jot down what some of those reasons are. Well, I don't know what's on your list, but of course there are also many health and well-being correlates to forgiveness, which we're going to go into more later. Because there are health and well-being correlates to forgiveness, it's not surprising that facilitating forgiveness is a recognized nursing intervention. The information on this slide is from the 7th edition of the Nursing Interventions Classification, published in 2018. The slide shows its definition, as well as just a few of the associated activities. And I love the definition: assisting an individual's willingness to replace feelings of anger and resentment toward another, self, or higher power with beneficence, empathy, and humility. I love the definition. It makes it sound like when you help someone forgive another person, you are doing a really beautiful thing, and you are. And so what we hope to do in this presentation, and what we're sharing with you today, is to explore forgiveness together with you, explore what it means to facilitate and how to help someone get to a place of forgiveness. In a film called Pay It Forward, there's a subplot around a daughter who's played by Helen Hunt, who is estranged from her mother, and I forget the actor's name. Meanwhile, the mother has fallen onto hard times and is more or less homeless. There's a scene where the daughter goes to find her mother, who is near a campfire of sorts, and possibly in like a homeless encampment of some kind. With some effort, the daughter gently but firmly confronts her mother with what she, the daughter, endured as a small child, while her mother had men over and there was drinking, and the implication was that while her mother wasn't looking, terrible, hurtful things happened to the daughter. Finally, the daughter says, "I forgive you." And there's a look of deep emotion and relief on the mother's face. The expression in the movie scene, "I forgive you," is commonly heard in movies and in real life. Let's explore this together more. What does "I forgive you" mean? Both the forgiveness concept analysis and the health promotion through forgiveness intervention articles offer or explore some definitions. But it's important to remember that due to a number of factors, different people might have different understandings of what "I forgive you" means. Imagine the average person in America watching this movie scene. What might they think Helen Hunt's character, the daughter, means by "I forgive you"? I invite you to jot down a list. I forgive you equals what? Might such a list include things like let's hang out together again, let's just start over, nothing needs to be made up or made right. What do you think the average American would list or put on a list as to what I forgive you means? Please pause the audio to do this before you advance further in the presentation. So this slide shows 3 key attributes of forgiveness, which we've seen from the research. We have letting go of a negative response following an offense. We have changing to a positive response towards the offender within a process that occurs over time. And forgiveness is something which can benefit the forgiver, you, even if the person who wronged you does not apologize or change their behavior. In fact, don't hold your breath waiting for the person who wronged you to apologize or change before you consider forgiving them, because forgiveness is about something that happens inside of you. In a short while, we'll talk about the many benefits of forgiveness, but I want to say now that experiencing these benefits does not depend on anything from the person who wronged you. It is in your control as the forgiver. So if these, what you see on the screen, describe what forgiveness is, what is forgiveness not? Well, forgiveness scholarship has shown what forgiveness is not. It's not pardoning, implying release of the offender from all legal responsibility. It's not condoning, implying there's a justification for the offense or some level of approval of the wrongdoing, perhaps because of a minimization of it. It's not excusing, similar to condoning, implying that there was a good reason for the offense. It can be explained away. It's not forgetting, refusing to remember the offense or trying to do that. So this really not, this statement, forgive and forget, really isn't what research has shown. It's not reconciling with the person who wronged you, implying restored trust and contact. It's not pretending that everything is fine. And on that last item, pretending that everything is fine, that can be a kind of a state of denial mistaken for forgiveness, because researchers have found that part of the process behind a successful forgiveness experience or facilitating that in another person is helping someone accurately remember and recognize the hurt for what it really was. All right, we've looked at what forgiveness is and is not. So, but if someone wants to forgive, how does someone arrive at that? Does everyone value forgiveness? What if someone doesn't want to arrive at forgiveness? Some people may not value forgiveness as they define it. And as you can see from the list you made a short while ago about what does I forgive you mean, there can be many ideas about forgiveness, some of which don't make forgiveness seem very appealing. So if someone thinks that forgiveness equals some of the things we just said, for instance, that forgiveness is not, that doesn't make forgiveness very appealing. You know, things that lead to statements like, all right, well, let's be friends again. Or, all right, I'm gonna trust him or her again. Or, nope, nothing needs to be made up or right. No justice is needed. Let's just start over. And if forgiveness as we define it is very unappealing, well, who wants to do that? We're probably not going to want to go there. So Helen Hunt's character arrived at a place of forgiveness. But before she got to that place, she was where? She was in a state of what some forgiveness researchers call unforgiveness. I invite you to explore this. Get a sheet of paper, and on the left side, make a column titled Unforgiveness Feelings. And under it, write down what you think are some feelings a person experiencing unforgiveness might be having. Pause the audio while you're doing it, because there's a second part to this exercise. Now add a column header to the right of the first column and title it Unforgiveness Behaviors. Under it, write down what you think are some behaviors that a person experiencing unforgiveness might exhibit towards the offender, the person that wronged them, as well as exhibit towards people in general, family members, coworkers, friends. Please pause the audio while you're doing that. The health promotion article notes that Worthington and colleagues define unforgiveness as a, quote, complex combination of negative emotions, resentment, bitterness, hostility, hatred, anger, and fear, unquote. How did my patient get this way? Or how did I get this way? Let's look at how unforgiveness develops. The diagram you see here on the screen is from forgiveness researcher Everett Worthington Jr. He says that, like forgiveness, unforgiveness is also a process that takes place over time. And he knew what this experience of unforgiveness was like firsthand. His mother was murdered. They never caught the murderer. And later his brother committed suicide over his mother's death. Worthington struggled with unforgiveness, struggled with unforgiveness towards the person who murdered his mother, and with unforgiveness towards himself. He blamed himself for his brother's suicide because he felt that he should have seen the signs coming earlier. He should have taken sufficient actions and steps to prevent it. According to Worthington, the development of unforgiveness goes something like you see on the screen there. First, obviously, you have the transgression. Whatever it was that was offensive, that was said or done, happens. Secondly, you perceive the action as offensive or injurious to you or someone you love. And you don't always perceive it literally at the time it's happening. It can hit you at some point in time later. Or at the time that you perceive it, which could be at the time of the offense or whenever it is later on that you perceive it, you experience some strong emotions. Examples: fear, anger, confusion, upset. And sometimes these emotions might be useful in order to secure your own or someone else's safety, rights, or sense of dignity. But according to Worthington, unforgiveness does not happen at steps 2 or 3. Your perception of or awareness of the offense, or the hot emotions you experience at the time that you perceive the offense. According to Worthington, that's not where unforgiveness is. He says, rather, unforgiveness arises out of what you see as number 4 there on the screen: rumination. Rumination. What is that? It's like long after number 3, long after your experience of the emotions that you feel at the time that you perceive the offense, you continue to ruminate on the offensive action. And by ruminate, Worthington means you mentally replay the transgression over and over again, like a YouTube video. You mentally replay what happened. You also mentally replay over and over in your head what the motives are of that person who hurt you. You often feel sure you know why they did it, even if that person never said why they did it. And thirdly, and this is perhaps the most painful, you play over and over and over in your mind again, what are the consequences of what was said or done, and how, because of what was said or done, you or your life is now somehow damaged, less than. Worthington says it takes time and rumination to develop unforgiveness, that brew of painful feelings that can follow after someone wrongs us or wrongs someone we love. So unforgiveness takes time to develop. Forgiveness does too. Once you are in a state of unforgiveness, the reality often is that it took you a while to get there, and it's going to take you a while to get out of it. The citation in this slide is from the Health Promotion Through Forgiveness Intervention article, showing that process-based group and individual forgiveness interventions have shown more effect than brief decision-based ones. And if someone is motivated to seek the peace that can come from forgiveness, the chance is higher they'll put effort into the process and benefit from it. Another citation from the Health Promotion Through Forgiveness Intervention article about the time factor in arriving at a state of forgiveness. But what if you hear from your patient, "I won't forgive"? There are stages of change, and what you see on the screen could be a helpful way to understand them. A lot of us aren't able to jump immediately from where we're at with something to what really is the most beneficial thing for us. And this can certainly often be true when we are mired in unforgiveness. Some or all of you may have learned about these stages of change from Prochaska's trans-theoretical model that posits that health behavior change involves progress through 6 stages of change: pre-contemplation, contemplation, preparation, action, maintenance, and termination. It's important to recognize which stage folks are in and respond accordingly. Of course, if someone says, "I will never forgive that person," well, they're likely in the pre-contemplation stage, seen on the slide as "I won't do it." Anywhere along the way, we could use what's called motivational interviewing to at least make it possible for someone to move from refusal or indecision or uncertainty towards wanting to make a positive change in their life. Gaining the other person's trust and their firm belief that you empathize with their feelings and have a non-judgmental stance towards them is critical. So let's say someone is talking to you about something that someone did or said to them and says, "I will never forgive that person." As their provider, of course, you would like to see them move to "I want to do it," or put another way, to move from pre-contemplation to contemplation. One possible response you could make is, "Well, I'm hearing you say that under no circumstances ever would there be a reason for you to forgive that person. Please tell me more." Let them tell you. They may or may not tell you of one or more circumstances or reasons where in fact they might be willing to forgive. But even if they don't do that, if it seems like they want to talk more, you could ask, "What does forgiving mean to you?" Let them tell you. They might say they don't know, or they think that some wrongs should not be forgiven or only forgiven conditionally, or they might express that forgiveness is some of the things we shared that forgiveness is not, some of the things we shared earlier with you about this. You are their healthcare provider, so that you could then say, "Well, the reason I bring this up is because we now know that holding on to negative feelings towards someone can be harmful for our health. May I share more information with you about this?" If they say yes, well, then at that time or at a later appointment, you could share with them things like what forgiveness is and is not. You could share with them things about the emotional, physical, and other benefits of forgiveness. And eventually, if they are open, tools and strategies to help them move from unforgiveness to forgiveness, as and when they're ready. So this is just a high-level view of how this might go. The most important thing is to first establish a caring, non-judgmental, empathic connection with them and to understand that they might be in any one of the stages of change. Is being a forgiving person something that someone either has or doesn't have, maybe personality related, or is it possible to learn to forgive, to become a forgiving person? The answer is yes. One can learn to forgive. One can become a forgiving person. When Ann and I talk with folks about forgiveness, we often share with them what we call the free method of becoming a forgiving person. As you can see on the screen there, we adapted this from the work of Stanford psychologist Albert Bandura. He did a lot of research on how people learn behaviors. And according to his thought and research, 4 things feed into successfully learning anything. One is facts, or persuasive information. Another is relaxation, or body calming, knowing how to calm your body and mind. We also have example of others. Watching others do what you want to learn how to do or to become better at doing. And lastly, experience. Achieving success at what you're trying to learn, remembering past successes, and leveraging those as you are facing new challenges in the same thing you're trying to learn or become better at. And he said that this is the most predictive of ongoing success. So the acrostic here is free. And hopefully that acrostic from these components can be something that you or your patients can remember easily as they think about learning how to forgive. Let's start with the F in free, forgiveness and knowing the facts. What you see on the screen there is a compilation of the result of reading many studies. It summarizes information from these studies as well as from the published article Concept Analysis of Forgiveness with a Multicultural Emphasis. There are numerous health benefits to forgiveness. Physically, forgivers experience better functional status, better sleep, less fatigue, fewer cardiac problems. Forgivers have more life satisfaction and greater acceptance of death. Emotionally, less anger, fear, depression, less distress about symptoms of illness. Better marriages and intergenerational relationships, greater work productivity. So if as opportunity arises, you are able to help your patient understand these benefits of forgiveness, and perhaps it's the first time they've heard these things, it could be an aid in doing one of the forgiveness facilitation activities mentioned in the Nursing Interventions Classification book, which is to assist the patient to examine the health and healing dimension of forgiveness. In addition to looking at the facts about how forgiveness can benefit us, the emotional, physical, cognitive, and other benefits we just looked at, we can learn from Viktor Frankl about how the process of forgiveness can unfold for us. So this is more of the F, facts/persuasive information part of free. Well, who was Viktor Frankl? He has been called the grandfather of incorporating spirituality into healthcare. He was a Viennese psychiatrist who pioneered work with his patients to improve their happiness through focusing on choosing the meaning and purpose of their life. The book you see in the slide here, Man's Search for Meaning, was originally a treatise he had been working on, and he sewed it into his coat when he was taken to a concentration camp in Germany. Well, not surprisingly, he quickly lost that treatise, but he recreated the work. I'm not sure how exactly, but he did while he was in a number of different concentration camps, and he used his theories to help his fellow inmates. And there are examples of that in the book. We can grow in our understanding of how the forgiveness process works by understanding how that process, how forgiveness fits into Frankl's theory of meaning. And before we share with you a model for this that's based on his work, the next slide shows a quote from him from that book that we think might be helpful in a person's forgiveness journey. So here's Frankl's quote from his book. "We must never forget that we may also find meaning in life even when facing a fate that cannot be changed. For what then matters is to turn one's predicament into a human achievement. When we are no longer able to change a situation, we are challenged to change ourselves." When someone wrongs us, we can experience the painfulness of the fact that it cannot be undone. All the wishing in the world won't make that happen. The only thing that can be undone is the unforgiveness we may have allowed to develop in us. Now, let's take a look at the process of forgiveness as it fits into Viktor Frankl's theory of meaning. This slide shows the forgiveness process incorporating Viktor Frankl's theory of meaning. On the left side of the screen, there's a circle containing the words spirit, mind, body. Frankl believed that persons not only have a mind and a body, but a spirit. And apparently this was a radical thing for a psychiatrist to say in his day. He believed that the part of us that he called spirit could make choices in defiance of any suffering we are experiencing in our bodies or our minds. You see, the phrase personal hurt, seen near the words spirit, mind, and body, that's where it all begins. Something happens to us that hurts us, that tramples on our needs, and we suffer. Our spirits can choose to let go of angry thoughts and feelings. We have the freedom to let go. And some people, maybe like the Dalai Lama or Mother Teresa, are able to do this as their first response to being wronged. This is called forbearance. It is characterized by the same things as forgiveness. And we'll come back to this shortly. For many of us, though, the rest of us, when we're wronged, we too often make a different choice. A choice to stay in rumination. We talked about rumination a little while ago. And this choice is characterized by three things, seen in the lower right corner of the graphic. One, we take what was done to us personally. For example, we think to ourselves things like, if that person truly respected or loved me, he or she wouldn't have done or said that. We make it about us, versus taking a view that what the person did was because of things that are true about them. Secondly, we judge the person, not their actions. We condemn the wrongdoer as a person. For example, he or she is evil. Thirdly, we experience negative emotions long after the hurtful thing was done. We may not realize it fully, but when we are here, we are choosing a negative life purpose of unforgiveness, characterized by chronic self-protection or getting even or both. As self-protection, of course, can be a good thing, particularly at the time of the offense where we might still be around the offender and need to protect ourselves or others, or protect ourselves in the future when we're around the offender. But a chronic mindset of self-protection can be harmful to us and our relationships. Likewise, a life purpose of getting retribution, which we might mistakenly think is necessary for our protection, is also unhealthy. How do we extricate ourselves from this? It happens, as we shared earlier, over a period of time, and as you can see on the screen here, and I'll explain in a moment, through using intrapersonal, interpersonal, and transpersonal sources of power and strategies. Examples from these can be seen in the graphic here on the slide, directly above what we just looked at in the lower right corner. So there are what I call, and Anne and I call, intrapersonal sources of power, things that arise from within us, involving what Frankl would call our spirit. A few examples can be seen under the header there in the graphic under self-reflection. These are the intrapersonal sources of power. And you can take a moment to look at them now or look at them a little later. Then there are interpersonal sources of power that arise from our connections with other people. And you can see some examples under the header support of others. And there are also what we call transpersonal sources of power that are outside of ourselves, from something bigger than ourselves. Some examples can be seen under the header on the screen there in the graphic, under the header connection with a higher power. These things are things that Anne, I, and a colleague discovered in our systematic literature review of nurse-authored qualitative forgiveness research published in 2019 called How People Forgive. And again, all of this unfolds over a period of time. And when over time we use intrapersonal, interpersonal, and transpersonal sources of power, we can arrive at the place that folks like the Dalai Lama and Mother Teresa went straight to after being wronged, seen above the phrase, forgiveness is a shift from negative to positive over time. For them, it is forbearance. For most of us, it is forgiveness. We are moving towards a beautiful choice of a life purpose of forgiveness. It is characterized by the three things you see there towards the upper right corner of the graphic. One, we don't take what was said or done to us personally. We recognize that the person who wronged us did so for reasons that are about him or her, not us. Secondly, accordingly, we judge the person's actions, not them as persons. But this in no way denies or excuses the wrongness of what was done. and the forgiver may also require restitution or justice of some kind. This is compatible with forgiveness. And third, as a result, we experience positive emotions like peace, love, humility, empathy. And this positive life purpose is a beautiful gift that as we as forgivers give to ourselves and other people, including the offender if they can receive it, and to God or our higher power if one is a believer in God, by imitating God's mercy and compassion. So this overview of the forgiveness process, along with other things we've looked at together up to this point, are part of the F in free, facts, and hopefully persuasive information for your patients and for ourselves about forgiveness. Now, let's take a look at the R in free. The R in free is relaxation or body calming. Bandura says that you need to have a calm or relaxed body to learn something. And I'll read aloud the quote on the slide. He says, because high arousal usually debilitates performance, individuals are more likely to expect success when they are not beset by aversive arousal than when they are tense, shaking, and viscerally agitated. Fear reactions generate further fear. So, when our bodies are in a high arousal state, our ability to perform goes down, whatever it is we want to perform. According to Bandura, when we are calm, we are more likely to expect success and actually be successful at what we're attempting to do. If someone needs and might want the peace and release that forgiveness can bring, they will not be likely to make much progress if they are physically, mentally, or emotionally tense. So let's explore this a bit more. What are some ways you could coach or help someone with body calming or to become less distressed in the context of facilitating forgiveness? I invite you to pause the audio for a moment and just reflect on that. It's important, too, that in the case of trying to help our patients or clients become skilled at calming themselves, that we are skilled at calming ourselves. Again, I invite you to reflect for a moment, pause the audio, and consider and reflect on what are some ways that you relax or calm yourself. And now I'd like to lead you in an exercise that combines two evidence-based interventions, meditative movement and gratitude, calling to mind things we're thankful for. I invite you to join me in this exercise, which is called the Gratitude Chalice, adapted from the work of our colleague Tina Frank. And just at the outset, I would like to say, only do what you are physically able to do comfortably as I lead you in this exercise. So to start, I invite you to stand up with your arms at your side, but you could sit too. And now gently sweep your arms up, inhaling for the count of 3 as you do so. Hold your breath for the count of 2, and then slowly exhale for a count of 4 as you lower your arms to your side again. So let's do it again. While sweeping your arms up, inhale for the count of 3, hold your breath for the count of 2, and slowly exhale for the count of 4 as you lower your arms to your side again. Now extend your arms up as though you are making the letter Y. Imagine that you are a chalice, and imagine all the things you are grateful for. And begin pulling from the sky above you with your hands those things you are grateful for. And imagine that you are putting them into your chalice. Some things you may really need to reach for. And now lower your arms and make the letter Y again, but this time with your hands in front of your chest. Imagine your chalice is full. Just hold your chalice and breathe for a moment. And now close your hands over the top of your full chalice, one hand over the other. And then gently place your hands over your heart and close your eyes. And take a few deep breaths. We've looked now at the F and the R in free. Let's look now at another of Bandura's 4 components for achieving change. The first of the 2 E's in free, the power of example in others. Bandura's research showed the important role that observing someone else doing the behavior that you want to learn plays. This is the vicarious experience piece mentioned in the Health Promotion Through Forgiveness Intervention article. Let's take a couple of moments now for reflection around this. Who for you is a model of forgiveness and compassion? This person could be someone you know personally, such as a friend, family member, teacher, etc. It might be someone you don't know personally. It could even be a character in a book or a movie, a real person, a fictional person, someone from history. If necessary, make up someone, imagine someone. Imagine a model, a person who models forgiveness and compassion. I invite you to pause the audio and take a few moments to reflect on who this person is for you. When you have this person selected, and I hope you were able to do that, now I invite you to recall or imagine being in the presence of this person. And specifically, recall or imagine watching this person's relationship with another person in their life who has caused them trouble or hurt them. And in your memory or imagination, observe how they are in this situation, your forgiveness model, what their facial expressions might be, the kinds of things they might say or not say in their relationship with the person who has troubled them or hurt them. And I hope you can come up with a model of forgiveness for yourself if you haven't for some reason now, because for a guided imagery exercise that is coming up in our time together, you will need this person. Now we come to the remaining Bandura component, leverage successful experiences, past and current. This is the second E in free. According to Bandura's research, this one is the most predictive of future success. With the power of successful experiences in mind, I invite you to please reflect on the first bulleted item on the slide, recalling a time that you successfully forgave someone. Doesn't have to be a big offense. The person you forgave does not even need to know that you forgave them. So I invite you to pause the audio and take a moment to think about that. Now, I invited you to think back on that time that you successfully forgave someone. And now I invite you to consider what made that possible for you. How did you manage to accomplish that? Again, I invite you to pause the audio, take some moments to reflect. You might even jot down what some of those things were that made it possible for you to successfully forgive. Before going on to the next slide, if possible now, I ask you and invite you to please get a seed of some kind, preferably a bean seed. We shared earlier how it can help us on our forgiveness journeys to calm our bodies and minds. When I invited you to identify a person who, for you, is a forgiveness example, I also invited you to reflect on how that person might relate to someone who had hurt them or caused them trouble. It can be helpful for us to imagine the wrongdoer in our life in a different way, in the way that our forgiveness example or model might look at this person. To help you experience what this might be like, I'd like to lead you in a meditation that Anne and I call the Bean Seed Forgiveness Meditation. This is the time for you to put a bean seed or some other type of seed near you. Just have it close by. If you don't have a physical seed, I invite you to imagine one. I invite you to either sit or stand uprightly, as comfortably as you can, but with a straight posture. Think dignified. And if possible, place your feet flat on the floor. If you're sitting, try sitting away, if you can do it, away from the back of the chair, keeping your head as straight as you can while being comfortable. Allow your shoulders to drop. And now, please place the seed into the palm of one of your hands and gently close your fingers over it. And closing your eyes, just becoming aware of your breathing. Simply noticing it as you inhale, and then noticing it as you exhale. And now I invite you to call to mind that person who for you is a model of forgiveness, the compassionate person you have identified. And as you are recalling this forgiving person, just noticing any feelings that are alive in you. What are those feelings? Maybe ease, or relief, or secure warmth. Just allow yourself to rest in these feelings for a moment, letting them wash over you. And now imagine that this person who is your forgiveness model is right at your side, standing with you, supporting you. And now bringing to mind a person who has caused you trouble. Not the most difficult, but something that is manageable for you. And remembering that your forgiveness model is right at your side, I invite you to imagine that together you are looking at the person who caused you trouble, but that person cannot see you. And as you are looking at this person who has caused you trouble, imagine that you sense that your compassionate model of forgiveness understands how you feel when you are looking at this person who has caused you trouble. As you and this forgiving person are together looking at the person who has caused you trouble, let a new perspective begin to unfold. Just take some time, feeling the presence of this forgiving person at your side, just being open to new things, open to new ways of seeing this person who has caused you trouble. The seed you are holding represents forgiveness growing inside of you. As the seed grows, slowly stretching forth its roots into the soil, It sloughs off its outer shell, softens, and over time grows into a beautiful plant. There is a kind of pain for this seed. While it is sloughing off its shell and taking on a new form, the seed is alive and growing, but not yet a full-grown plant. I invite you to take the seed with you after you've listened to this presentation today. You could put it in your pocket or a purse or a similar place. Let the seed be a gentle reminder or symbol to you that the seed of forgiveness is with you and has a life and a power of its own to grow inside of you. Be gentle with yourself. You are in a process. You can always hold a seed in your hand and return to this meditation whenever you want to. And now, gently open your eyes and return your awareness to the room. To conclude, in helping facilitate forgiveness as a nurse, knowing the patient is crucial. Please pause the audio to take a moment to read the quotes on the slide. It's not on the slide, but as an example of how knowing the patient is key in facilitating forgiveness, the 2009 Health Promotion Through Forgiveness Intervention article cites the case of someone presenting as angry at her daughter, but in reality she was angry at herself, could not forgive certain things in herself. Regardless of the specific forgiveness need, I invite you to take a moment and think back on what have been some situations, perhaps in your personal life, but especially with patients or clients, in which you can see that there was a need for forgiveness facilitation. Please pause the audio to take a few moments for this. I invite you to picture the positive difference it would make in these people's lives if they could meet someone who could help them forgive. That person can be a nurse. That person can be you. A quick note, the following slides contain some forgiveness resources followed by citation references and background reading. That concludes our presentation for today. Anne and I are grateful to have had this opportunity to share with you.